Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO Lead-In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new paths despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. Today we are here with Natalie Jones, who happens to be my daughter and a student at USD. She is also the co-founder of SheEO Lead-In. How are you today, Natalie?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the podcast, Mom.
Thank you so much for being with us. So today's a little bit different because we've never had you on here and talking about what you've done here on the podcast, and you're not out in the workforce. So let's talk a little bit about, let's start with an icebreaker. How about a story from your childhood that people might not know about you that kind of gives some insight to who Natalie Jones is?
Well, you definitely know all of my childhood stories, but I feel like a story that represents me and even kind of my career a little bit and just my overall personality is when I forget how old I was, but I feel like I was like 7 or 8, and I wrote an entire business plan and I made a cupcake company and I was going to start it, and I was like so passionate about starting my own business. And I had all the flavors and I like named all them and I said all the toppings and all what it would all look like. And I even had printed out a bunch of probably 30 papers of my business plan to give to potential investors. So I feel like that is definitely a story that kind of talks about my personality of how I've always loved business and I've always just been super passionate about it, and just a funny way that when I was younger, I made a cupcake company. Sadly, I have not started it yet, but maybe one day, who knows?
Well, you know what's interesting about that? I'm pretty sure you know that I actually saved that. I thought it was so cute, but I made a copy of it and I actually gave it to the developers of North City. I did. And actually about, 2 months ago, one of them brought it up to me and said, "Hey, do you remember when your daughter wanted to make San Marcos cupcakes?" And I said, "I really do." And I still have her business plan. So I think that's very funny and very indicative to your personality and your drive, which leads me to the question of, what is one word that you think that represents you and captures you as a person, Natalie?
I would say bold. I think in a lot of different ways. I think I kind of say what I'm thinking, and I'm also bold in the sense of I think I am true to myself, and I think when I want to do something, I kind of just go for it. But I can also be bold in a lot of other ways. I think I'm pretty outgoing, and I'm kind of a bold personality sometimes in good ways and bad ways, but I think probably bold.
So you're 22 years old, which our listeners need to know that so that they understand kind of where you're at in your career and your life. You're finishing up right now at USD. Why don't you talk a little bit about your internships and things that you've done so far to help you put you on a path of what you think you'd like to do?
Yeah, so I am a business student at USD. I'm majoring in business administration and minoring in marketing. And my dad and my parents always made it very clear to me that it was very important to have internships at a young age. And I think it was probably the best thing I ever did for my career. I think it allowed me to really get so much experience that no one my age has, not even in like a cocky way, but it's genuinely like I'm so thankful to have all these experiences. So, God, the first internship, I went to China with Wayland Furniture, and I was kind of a product development intern in a sense, and I was able to see how they negotiate with factories and manufacturers, and I was able to work with them and just learn alongside them. I didn't get to do a ton of hands-on work, but I was running around the city at 17 years old in Guangdong, like running errands with some of the people that worked at the factory. So that was like a super formative experience of like really learning that I love global work and how I really love to do something like that, possibly in the future. And then a few years passed and I went to college. And then after my freshman year at USD, I went to Hong Kong for about a month. And I was working with a company called Li & Fung. And that was super cool because I was living there alone. Like, I didn't come with anyone. So that was a super formative experience of like, if I really want to do something and I can just go for it and do it and no one has to help me, like I can do it on my own. So that was super cool. And I have some crazy stories from living there for a little bit. But as far as career-wise, I think I learned so much about global work, and they're a really large company, and they source for a lot of companies. So that was pretty cool to be a part of that. And I kind of learned more management stuff alongside the Wayland team at Li & Fung. And then after that, I came to Cloudcast and we started the podcast, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little more later. That was really cool with you founding that, and just being able to start something was pretty cool, and producing it and meeting all the women and just being able to network in a sense. And then through that, I met Jamie, who is the partner at J Public Relations. And then I got super interested in PR, and then I interned there as a public relations intern for about 8 months, and I really liked that. And that was super cool. And I was working downtown San Diego at their firm, and I was working with like high luxury travel clients, which I was really passionate about, or I am really passionate about travel. So I was exploring that. And then I came back to Cloudcast and I was doing social media for the Instagram. And I was super passionate about marketing, and that's my minor. So I was testing that out. And I feel like the common theme throughout my career, I guess, or not that my career has really started, but my pre-career in a sense, is just kind of trying everything and seeing what I like and what I'm passionate about. And then this summer I was able to intern with Sunbum, which was like my dream company I could ever work at. Seriously, the best company, the best people ever. And I was doing basically product development with their innovative quality regulatory team. And I was mostly working on packaging. And then that's kind of where I found out I was pretty passionate about sustainability and ensuring sustainable sourcing through manufacturers and vendors. And I had a huge project all about packaging and making it more sustainable alternatives to packaging instead of single-use plastic. So I've done a lot, and I feel really lucky to have all this experience at my age. But I feel like the main theme, like I said, is just kind of trying everything and really figuring out what I like and what I really want to do long term. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you are trying new things, don't you think it kind of helps you steer out things that you might not want to do, as well as the things that you really feel passionate about?
For sure. Yeah. When I was doing the social media thing, I was like so excited about it. And then I like romanticized it in my mind. And then I was like, maybe I don't want to work in the future where I have to be on social media all the time, you know? And then as far as like product development, I didn't really know what to expect fully going into it. And then I ended up loving it. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And just I love connecting with people and talking to people all the time, and especially all different kinds of people. And I feel like that job allows for that because you're constantly making new relationships with vendors and manufacturers. And then through that, I found out like I loved that. So I think trying new things really allows you to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And I think it has to do with personality type as well. And what works for someone else may not work for me and vice versa. So I think it's important to figure out what you're passionate about and what works for you for sure.
So I have a question. When you were on your internships in China and then Hong Kong, it was probably hard to listen, wasn't it?
Honestly, okay, well, it depends. So my China internship and my Hong Kong were so different. When I was in China, it was like I was the only white person. I was the only one that couldn't speak Mandarin. You know, like all these things. There was a huge language barrier, and we had translators and stuff. So, like mainland China, so different. So, as far as that, like that is definitely really hard. And I don't know if I would necessarily want to do that for a long period of time, just because it's hard to communicate. And there were times when we'd be in the factory and like our team was fighting with them and they're all yelling at each other and then they're like speaking Chinese and then we're like yelling and everyone, it's just crazy. And I think language barrier had a lot to do with that, just like trying to understand each other. But when I was in Hong Kong, it's super westernized and everyone speaks English. And as far as there, like I obviously felt a little odd out. I felt like the only white person, which isn't an issue, but I stuck out and people would stare at me and I was definitely the odd one out. But I could communicate with everyone and like we could understand each other. And that was probably the most surprising thing. I remember my first day, I went to lunch with my like manager and one of my other coworkers. And we were like laughing and making jokes and we just like find the same stuff funny. And that was like so surprising. And I was like, wait, we're all the same. Like, not that I would think they wouldn't, but you'd think like language barrier or what, but we had such a good time. So I think like westernized Hong Kong, like I didn't have an issue communicating, but yeah, definitely mainland China. It's definitely different. Or if you were to go to Vietnam or something.
So far as your internships go, do you think that you've been successful at it? And then also, have you had a failure? Do you think at any point so far?
Honestly, I don't think I have had a failure. I think even when internships ended up being like, oh, I had a good time, but I don't think I want to do that full time. I think that's a success because I figured out, oh, I had a great time. I had great experience. I'm going to leverage this to something else, but I don't necessarily want to do that long term or whatever. And I think that was super helpful. And I think I've been super successful at leveraging my connections and using past experiences to get to the next. So, for example, when I came here to Cloudcast and I met Charles and we created the podcast with you and I, and then I was able to network and I met Jamie who came on the podcast and I was then able to reach out to her and be like, hey, I'm super interested in what you do. And then I applied and then I got the internship there. And then towards the end of my internship at JPR, I was talking to Jamie and she was asking me what I really wanted to do in the future. And I was like, honestly, my dream has always been to work at Sunbum. Like, I'm obsessed with them. That's my dream San Diego company. Like, I think they're the coolest. I love the products and I like the lifestyle around it. And she was like, you know what? I actually know someone who works there. And she connected me with Jessica, who's in product development. And Jessica connected me with HR, who was sourcing for interns and interviewing, but just like leveraging your past connections onto the next, it really doesn't hurt to like ask or to talk about it. Like I had no idea Jamie knew anyone at Sunbum, and that was such like a shot in the dark. But since I knew what I wanted to do and I was like true to myself of like, this would be my dream, but I don't know if you would. And she's like, oh no, I actually know someone there. So just in that sense, yeah, I think I've been successful at leveraging onto the next and using past internships to get to the next, in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think you're saying that networking is very important in
sure.
Career. It is about meeting new people and being exposed to different things. And I really like how you're talking about, maybe it didn't work out here as far as you wanting to be passionate about that and you figuring out, though, you rule it out. And so you rule it out so then you can move on to the next experience. And at 22, I certainly hadn't done that. I really got stuck in a rut of what I wanted to do. And, I found out later in life something that I was actually really passionate about, really good at. So I think that's important, again, try new things. And you probably recall, I say that pretty often. Try new things that are outside your comfort zone, obviously not dangerous, but things that don't feel completely second nature yet, because they might actually become second nature at some point in time.
For sure.
So, you're young, you're a young woman. Have you had any resistance so far in your internships when you're dealing with men and people that are older than you?
Honestly, no, I really haven't. I think really I haven't at all. I also have worked at companies that are like predominantly women a lot, JPR, Sunbum, like predominantly women, not that, and like also just like the men that I've worked with at Sunbum, JPR, or everywhere, like they're amazing. And I have never had a bad experience. And I think just like it's good to work at companies and be a part of companies that like gender, it's not even a question. It's everyone's working together. We're on the same level playing field. Everyone wants everyone to succeed, and there's no, oh, she's a girl or oh, she's young. Really at all. I think probably the only experiences I've ever had were in college, and not that business is like a men's major, but there are a lot of men. There are a lot of girls though in business, but depending on the major and minor. But I remember so long ago, like freshman year, I don't remember what class it was. It was like econ. And this guy said to me, he was like, oh, Natalie's gonna marry rich and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what? Hopefully, like, I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna be the one hopefully making money. Like, that's like, so that was like a weird gender role that someone said to me like so long ago, and I dismiss it now. But obviously it's kind of stuck with me if I remember it from so long ago. But as far as work, no. Like in the actual workplace, in the actual real world, I've never experienced anything, which I'm thankful. Like I know that other people experience much different things, but I think it has a lot to do with the rooms I've been able to be in and the companies that I've been able to put myself into. I think company culture is super important in that sense, and I think it varies also by industry for sure.
So let's talk role models for a minute. So who do you think have influenced you a lot in your life?
I would definitely say my mom and my dad, so including you. I would say my dad made me, he's an entrepreneur, so I think in that sense, I don't know if it was ingrained in me or if it was more a natural personality. I think it was a mixture of both, but seeing him being an entrepreneur from a young age and him traveling to Asia and working globally and doing all these things that I thought were so cool and just having like a business mind, I think that very much rubbed off on me. And I have always thought like financially, and my dad and I talk about investments and real estate, and like that's like fun. So I think maybe it's just personality type for me, but I think that had a bit to do with it, that he influenced me in that sense. And then as far as you, I think because my dad's more introverted and more quiet, but he's such a great, strong business mind, and he's a savage. He's awesome. But I feel like from you, I got a lot of my personality type, and like you were talking about earlier, like trying new things. I think he influenced me in that way a lot, but so did you. And I think just going for what I want to do, and I think having like a strong woman leader in my life makes me, it made me believe, I can do whatever I want. And I think being a woman leader, you've inspired me in that sense, as well as just like connecting with others. You're super good at that. And I think I learned a lot of that from you. It can be learned from you, but also part of my personality. I think it's a mixture again, like I'm saying. But also just like just your outgoing personality. I think that rubbed off on me. I think if you were much more muted personality, I probably wouldn't be as outgoing as I am. So I think that rubbed off on me a lot too. So I think it was the culmination of you guys who kind of made me who I am in my career and who I am as a person to, for my passions and my strengths. You guys both kind of gave me all of those things to culminate into who I am now, for sure, yeah.
And you're still evolving.
Yeah.
You're definitely
I'm
going to be.
very young and I'm just at the beginning, so I'm constantly evolving and hopefully constantly improving for
Well,
sure.
and you know what I think is interesting? I mean, when you're talking about all of this, I think of you as a young girl, and you were very shy
Yeah.
for quite some time. You were very shy. And I think that the change was when you joined team sports in soccer and you realized how you could actually dominate on the field. And then
Yeah.
you got that confidence. And I can't express it enough to women that are out there that are listening to this, and men for that also exposing your kids to a team sport, I think, is really important, because you do find that camaraderie, you find the drive, and then when you find your space where you can dominate, it gives you that confidence that helps you move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's such a good experience. So just kind of thinking about some of the lessons that you've learned and, wisdom that you've learned, what would you say are some other things that you walk into a room of young women, what would you say to them? Hey, this is really important. I hope you hear this from me speaking about what I've been going through so far.
Yeah. That is a really good question. I would say the number one, it's so cliche. And everyone says, oh, it's so cliche, because it is so cliche. But it's seriously the most important thing is like being true to yourself, because you have one life to live. YOLO, you only live once. That's seriously the truest thing ever. You have one life, and if you're not true to yourself, you're like living a life for others, and you're just gonna be sad. Like, you're gonna be so bummed that, and life's gonna fast forward, and you're gonna look back and be like, why did I do that? Like, I didn't want to do that. Why did I never do this? So I think just doing what you want to do and not really caring what other people think. And honestly, there's things that I do in my life and I'm true to myself, and maybe I don't partake in things or etc. And I might get a little gas for that, or I might get a little heat for that. And honestly, it doesn't matter, because people that would not be okay with me being true to myself, it's like, okay, well, I don't really need them in my life. Obviously, if they're not okay with me being true to myself and being my truest form, I don't need them in my life. And I feel like when you're your truest self, the best people come into your life, and you'll make the best friends that are the most real and that align with you the most on the track that you want to go. So I would say that for sure, as well as, like I said earlier, trying everything. Not everything, but trying what you want to do, and like exposing yourself to different fields and stuff that you maybe think you're not super interested in. And if you don't like it, okay, cool, like move on to the next. Like you said, obviously, I've taken that with me for sure, and as well as leaning into what you're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, if you hate your job, or if you hate your life, or you hate where you live, you're going to be bummed, and that's going to suck. So doing what you want to do and what you're passionate about, and leaning into that and figuring that, and you can only figure that out by trying new things and really exposing yourself to a lot of different things. And I think I've only really found my passions and things that make me passionate about stuff. And I've only found that through exposure to all these different things, or traveling, or making all these different friends in college, or trying different internships. So I think those are the main three things I would say, but ultimately be yourself.
Well, and to that point, I think, there's a lot of stress, I think, that women receive out in society of, you need to be this way and you need to be that way. And, I mean, for me, being in a job and a career in politics, and people say, wait, why are you doing it like this? Why are you doing it like that? Because that's my way. I'm not going to do anything that I do in any way. And, a lot of times I say to people, listen, government can't be all about rules and regulations. It also needs to be about caring. And I think, there's a a stigma that politicians are only cold and calculating and, gunning for the next thing that they're going to be doing. And I look at that and I go, I don't really care about that stereotype. That's not how I'm going to do it because that's not me.
Yeah.
And so back to being true to yourself, I cannot stress how important it is for women to find their way in a path that they're passionate about, but also in a way that is their own, and being able to own it and be comfortable in it. And then the other thing I'd like to say is, when you've got a tough situation where, and I can tell you, there is a cycle in business, whatever career it is. There are times that are really good and there are times that are really tough. And in those tough times, you've got to figure out how to have joy every day.
Yeah.
Because if
sure.
you aren't joyful, even if you're in the worst of circumstances, I mean, you can't just predict everything that's going to happen in life. I mean, the one constant is always going to be change, but being able to find joy in whatever is it you're doing, even if you've got a terrible home life or you've got a terrible employee that's really causing you a lot of stress and strain, to get through those times is really a resilience that I think leads us all into a very good path. No matter what, we can get through it and figure out, is this where I should be or am I meant to be somewhere else in my path? So those are some things that I would just like to add to all of that. But I think I
totally
kind of heard you talking about that in a roundabout sort of way.
No, yeah, back to what you're saying of like how you're in politics and you don't need to do things a certain way. I feel like people, even like career-wise or just personality-wise, people put them in a box and they're like, oh, well, Rebecca's like this. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, you can be whatever you want. So
That's right.
you can be a CEO of a huge company and you can be super warm and soft and you don't need to be mean and tough. Like, that's not how it works. So I think in that sense, just being true to yourself and whatever you want to do, like, you don't have to adapt to it and you don't have to adapt to people and society. I think do what you want to do. And if people aren't okay with that, doesn't matter.
Right. And you can be tough. You can definitely have that tough side of you. And then you can also have that soft side of you that is, still caring about people, caring about things, and having that as, a benchmark of who you are, because it is who you are as a person and not as a CEO or a SheEO, but, all across the board. So, again, advice to young women leaders, I think we touched a little bit upon that previously, but if you walked into a room, no one knows anything about what you do. If you're just giving them life experience, and you're only 22, but you have learned definitely some things. For me, I always like to surround myself with good people. And, sometimes, those relationships change, and that's okay. Sometimes you don't want different things in your friendships and your, relationships. So what would be something that you would share with us as something that you, would share with some other young leaders?
I would say, well, especially being young, I'd say get as much experience as you can because it's going to benefit you so much in the long run. I'm graduating college in a few months now in December, and I'm somewhat stressed. Not really, but I'm not super scared because I know I have great experience and I know that where I'm meant to be, I will end up. So I think doing what you need to do what you need to do while you're in school or while you can. And then when the time comes for you to start your career, you'll be ready and it'll open doors for you in a sense. And I think also, again, be true to yourself. Do what you want to do. Don't do a career because people tell you to or your family or whatever. Who cares? Do what you want to do and what you're passionate about. Be where you want to be. If you want to move across the country, if you want to move across the world, go. You have one life. That's kind of where I'm at now. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I got to move somewhere just for a little bit or something. But yeah, just do what you want to do. And I think a really important thing that I would tell them is the art of autosuggestion, and how if you say something and you continue to say it throughout your life and you really believe it, it will be true and it will literally happen for you. And I read that in a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I was on a flight to Cabo, and this 28-year-old man, I was 19, and this 28-year-old man was talking to me about college, and he was like, you should read this book. If you do anything, read this book. And it was talking about how if you say something enough, you'll believe it. And it's not delusional to where you're like, oh, I'm a millionaire. If you say, I'm going to be a millionaire in 5 years or whatever your thing is that you say, you will believe it, and slowly you'll start doing the steps to get you to go there, and you'll do anything you can to do it. So for me, I seriously have a memory of 2 years ago, or no, wait, yeah, 2 years ago in 2020, I was like, I'm going to work at Sunbum. At some point, I'm going to get a job, whether it be an internship or something. I want to work at Sunbum. So I'm going to, not even I want to, I'm going to work at Sunbum at some point. I don't know when. And then 2022 summer, I ended up interning there. So I feel like if you say something enough, or if you believe it enough, it's going to happen. So that's what I would say, honestly. And I truly believe that. And I seriously think it's super powerful to say. So the art of autosuggestion.
I love that. So tell me about what you think about your starting SheEO and what it's done for you. How do you look at that experience?
I think it was one of the most important things I probably could have done in my career. I think it allowed me to not only network and meet all these people, but also get advice from all these women that are coming on the podcast. It's free information that you can just, oh, let me pocket this, or, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me think about that. So definitely that. And I think also just it allowed me to be more confident in my career. And, I went on the news a few times. That was super scary in the beginning, but such good experience and so cool. And it just put me, in that sense, that was kind of outside my comfort zone, but it put me in just positions to just improve myself and overall just grow in my career and flourish. So I think that really starting the podcast with you just allowed, it was like a big push to be okay, Nat, keep going. You're on the right track.
I love
this
it.
is good.
Yeah.
So I would say that.
So what comes next for you? What's up?
That is a good question. Yeah, I graduate in December. I have opportunities here in San Diego from obviously past internships, but I am exploring other things. I'm looking in product development. I'm looking in some marketing. I don't know. I'm kind of open to it all, but I'm really looking at trying to see if I can leave. I've been looking abroad. I've been looking in Singapore, Australia. It's hard to get visas and stuff, but I've just been looking into all of those options. But overall, just starting my career and trying to do something I like and love, something that I don't hate. I want to do that. But overall in the future, just making money so that I can hopefully invest. I would love to flip houses in the future. That's a goal for the next 15 years. I want to flip houses. That's a goal. I think that would be so fun. But yeah, I think just starting out, but not just career-wise, just being happy and being in a location that makes me happy, that I can do things that I love, and just cultivating my relationships. Career's not everything. I think just overall being happy in who I am and continuing to be true to myself. And I think if I continue to do that, my path will be formed.
We'll find a way.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you very much. Today, Natalie Jones, the co-founder of SheEO Lead-In, and my daughter. I'm really proud of you, Natalie.
Thank you, Mom. I love you.
I love you too.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.